In the last session, we mentioned about one of the benefits of conflict is the fact that it brings up issues from the past and gives you an opportunity to resolve them. I told the story of Mr. Kamau and his son and how Mr. Kamau mishandled that situation. And now as we transition into the next point, I'll be completing the story of Mr. Kamau and seeing how the two of them reconnect relationally and begin to resolve their conflict. But point number 3 of benefits of conflict is that conflict allows family members to grow in their capacity to love. You see, a wise parent will reflect on the conflict and examine their own contribution to it. No matter who started the conflict, a wise parent can steer it in the right direction. You see, conflict exposes the need for parents to love their children deeper. You know, God demonstrates his own love for us in that while we're yet sinners, Christ died for us. He didn't wait for us to change before he loved us, but when we were in the midst of our sin, Christ died for us. And that is in Romans 5 and verse 8. The parent needs to remember, no matter how horrible this situation looks, I need to resolve the conflict, but I must retain the relationship. God did that at the expense of his own life. He resolved the conflict between us and him. He retained the relationship. He lost his life, but in the process regained it and purchased ours. Mr. Kamau goes to the bedroom and his wife urges him to reconcile with his son. Mr. Kamau is too angry to do anything at that time. You see, a parent must focus on their own actions. Johnny, in his explosion, had displayed a lot of what was going on in Mr. Kamau's life. And if Mr. Kamau had the ability to listen, there's a lot that was said. But if Mr. Kamau is angry the whole time, if Mr. Kamau is exploding the whole time, he will miss the opportunity. So a parent must focus on their own action instead of focusing exclusively on the action of the teenager. So the next morning, Dad offers to take John on a drive. John is 16 and is not licensed to drive on the public roads, but Dad would often drive out to the Nairobi National Park with him and allow him to drive while they're in the park. John is surprised that Dad is offering him to drive, especially when Dad accused him of scratching the car the last time he saw him move the car. Mr. Kamau drives to the park, and once they're in, he lets Johnny drive. As they're driving, Mr. Kamau starts to apologize to his son. This is unheard of in Africa. A father apologizing to the son. But you see, his wife helped him to realize that he did not know what really happened in school. He apologizes for his contribution to the conflict. He says, son, I'm sorry the way I treated you when I picked you from school. I'm sorry that I never tried to find out what really happened. I'm sorry that I only believed what the teacher said. John, on his side, says, Dad, I'm sorry for expressing so much anger last night. I was just so frustrated. I didn't know what to do. John and his dad begin to reconcile relationally. The issues underneath still haven't been resolved, but you can't resolve issues until you reconnect relationally. You remember the story of the prodigal son? When he came back home, the father's first thought is, my son is back home. He received him. He celebrated before they could even talk about what really happened. John and his dad have been reconciling. The relationship is starting to grow again. Dad asks John, hey John, tell me about the scratch on the car. Oh, the scratch on the car. Dad, you remember you had taken the car to the garage? Yeah. And the mechanic brought it home? Yeah. and he parked it in the wrong place. Yeah. When our gardener was washing the car, he drew to my attention the fact that the car came in with a scratch. And after he washed the car, he asked me to repark it in the right place because he knows that you allow me to drive. And when I was moving to repark the car, that's when you came in, Dad. And you came in, immediately saw the scratch, and assumed that I was the one who scratched it. But the car came from the garage with the scratch. Dad is feeling really, really bad. He's feeling bad because he quickly jumps at conclusions. But in the process of doing that, he's always accusing his son. You see, Dad wants his son to grow to maturity, but the way he's handling it, Dad is a big contributor to the conflict in that particular family. You see, God cares more about a repentant heart than your ability to quickly fix the situation. And in both the cases here, both on Johnny's end and Dad's end, a repentant heart is on display. The things we value most are often beyond our ability to correct on our own without God. In Psalm 51, verse 16 and 17, King David is repenting about his situation with Bathsheba and the killing of Uriah. And he says to the Lord, "You do not delight in sacrifice, otherwise I would give it. You do not take pleasure in burnt offering." The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart, God, you will not despise. This is the point that we need to come to. Instead of focusing on the child's rotten behavior, we can focus on the need for us to build a type of heart that God can use to redeem the rottenness of that child. We are the reference point for that child, and we need to create an environment that allows us to redeem that heart. Conflict gives us an ample opportunity to reflect on our hearts. We need to know how to have a healthy conflict and to build a relationship that can withstand future